Democrats agreed with the decision to uphold the president's law. 83% of Republicans disagreed with the ruling. Here to talk about it, the health care ruling, is defense attorney and legal expert Randy Reep. And Randy, there at this point, boy, you can start a conversation with anybody and get into an argument over this stuff because people are they feel so strongly about this, but there's really nothing anybody can do right now.
Well,
it's law.
It is, and arguments are fun, but at the end of the day, the U.S. Supreme Court, they set what is the law of the land, and they've laid it down, and they've made it very clear what is the law. So we could argue about the nuances of it, but the fact is it was found to be constitutional, as you mentioned, under the ability to, which that is in itself revolutionary in many ways. But how they got there really doesn't matter. They say it's good, and it's good.
Now, what's it going to take to reverse this thing for the people who are against it? I know you mentioned Romney's already talking about it. If he gets elected, he's going to repeal it.
Procedurally, it is subject to repeal. The prohibition against drinking alcohol was repealed, and that was an amendment to the Constitution, much more difficult to do than even this. In fact, it would be relatively simple if people that didn't want it were able to win the Senate and the White House, and all those people wanted to repeal it. They could do it under, because it's now a tax, under what's called reconciliation. It's actually, it doesn't require the 60% to overcome the filibuster, and it could happen. The fact of the matter is that has to happen this election, because can you imagine 4 years down the road, this is going to be the law of the land and executed in accordance with the law, then to turn it back would probably be far more expensive than anybody would be willing to bite off on.
Here's Mitt Romney this week talking about the Supreme Court's decision.
Obamacare was bad policy yesterday. It's bad policy today. Our mission is clear. If we want to get rid of Obamacare, we're going to have to replace President Obama.
That's pretty clear. Look, politically, it's a hot button issue. It's going to be a lot of elections are going to be decided. A lot of races are going to be decided on this issue. But let's talk about now the bare bones of it. Florida here and the expansion of Medicaid. That's one of the hot button items. What is going to happen here in the state? There's a lot of debate about, should the states have to follow the expansion, the federal expansion of Medicaid?
The one thing that was held unconstitutional in the law by a large margin, 7-2, was that you can't penalize the state now for not expanding Medicare in accordance with the new law.
Because as it was written, if a state didn't go along with it, they'd lose their federal funding
for the Medicare. Well, so now that can't happen. How that procedurally happens is going to come by way of other controversies. What's interesting, about 3.85 million people, 21% of the population of Florida is currently uninsured. That would arguably, some of them, a large portion of them, be covered under Medicare if the expansion occurred. I'm not a politician. That's a lot of voters. Presumably they vote. That's a lot of voters to leave on the table, and how they address those voters is going to be very interesting in Florida elections going forward.
There's a lot of debate too on how it's going to affect small businesses. Like, small businesses are everywhere. It's not just Florida, but from what you've read and what you've seen, how do you think it's going to help or hurt small business?
Well, I am a small business owner, and I mean, I think if you grow...
Yeah, you have employees.
I do. And if you get to 50 employees or more, I'm not quite there yet, 50 employees or more, you're going to have to offer health care. And if you don't, now all of a sudden I argue that I think you're going to see employees have opportunity to get health care other ways that I might not have to be considering that as a benefit that I need to start tying to my benefit package. It's going to become more expensive. There are going to be more people on the rolls. But as you and I were talking, these are also going to be people that are participating in the healthcare system, and a larger volume may have its own reduction of costs. Believe me, this is going to become an expensive proposition, but not as expensive, I think, in many ways as people have projected.
And if you have a young paralegal who's 26 or younger, they can, still be under their parents.
That is a nice benefit that businesses can enjoy as well.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Coming up this morning, Christian Fernandez. He was back in court yesterday.